everyone, and we are here for the second day of Gathering Places, which is a creative conversation in this three-part virtual series. It explores the intersections of urban life, placemaking, and artistic expression. My name is Madeline Spencer, and I'm your host. I'm also the co-director of Placemaking US. And in this program, you're going to hear from nationally acclaimed creative placemakers and Portland area placemakers grantees who are going to share their inspiration, their artistic journeys, and their unique challenges of working within community spaces. In collaboration with Placemaking US, Gathering Places is co-presented and sponsored by the Community Placemaking Program of Metro, the Greater Portland area's regional government that serves 24 cities and 3 counties in Oregon. Our esteemed guests come from diverse disciplines within the creative placemaking realm, including the Arts Federation, urban design, community arts, and more. The Gathering Places Creative Conversation Series not only celebrates the vast spectrum of artistic practices, but it also aims to demystify the creative process in placemaking for the audience, offering a deep dive into the dedication required for a life in the realm of creative placemaking. The series shines a spotlight on Portland's flourishing creative community, fostering a deeper appreciation for centering the arts within its urban landscape. Each event is going to conclude with a lively conversation, so I hope you all are writing down your questions as you listen and are ready after the session to ask questions. I'm going to hand it off to Dana Lucera, who's going to explain to you more about Metro.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. And thanks to those of you who are joining us for a second. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Dana Lucero. I use she, her pronouns, and I manage Metro's Community Placemaking Grant Program. For those who were here yesterday, I'm sorry you're going to hear the same thing from me, but for those new folks, we really want to introduce Metro as a regional entity to you because even folks who live in the Portland region don't necessarily know us. So I'm going to share a few slides. Oops, let's go back. Okay, so this is the area that we call Metro in Portland, Oregon. And in the 1950s, there was a recognition that there were a lot of challenges being presented through urbanization that were threatening farmlands and forests, as well as pressure to have regional coordination for things that cross jurisdictional boundaries. So Metro was formed, and we are the only directly elected regional government in the United States. You can see it. The region is Portland and the 23 surrounding cities. This also happens to be the area that is eligible for community placemaking grants. Like I mentioned, we have a directly elected council, and I'm going to introduce one of our esteemed councilors momentarily. And we also tend to deal with issues that cross regional boundaries, jurisdictional boundaries, excuse me. Things like we have big major arts venues, we handle the solid waste and recycling streams, we have significant regional trails and parks. And this program actually falls, the placemaking program, within our planning, development, and research department. There was a recognition that of all of the traditional planning programs in our portfolio that we needed to have an explicit focus on building human and social capital. And so we developed this grant program. And really, in a nutshell, this is what it's about. It supports community-driven, equity-centered, arts and culture-based efforts that strengthen people's connections to each other and the places that they care about. Placemaking can really mean a lot of things, but for us as a government, we feel the appropriate place is to really center our financial support on those community-led efforts. So where the effort is conceived of, carried out by, and benefits received by the community that's proposing the grant. And whether it's preserving something like placekeeping, safeguarding what's already in place, or really transforming the function and form of a place or practice. That's really, we put our trust in community, that they know what is best for them. Since 2017, we've awarded just under $1.5 million to 88 different community groups. And we've got another grant cycle coming up. We'll open applications in early August this year. This is a big increase. We have grown the pot of awards from $200,000 to $450,000. Grants can range from $5,000 to $25,000, and no matching funds are required. Like I said, the all grant activities must take place within that boundary that we looked at. And we'll have some virtual information sessions coming up. So if you're interested, my contact information appears shortly. I'd encourage you to listen in. Here is where you can find a whole lot more, including the application handbook for next cycle, which will be posted in July, links to the online application, and here's my contact information. And again, we're just really pleased to host with Placemaking US a conversation that focuses on the impact of these creative, really place-based efforts. And so please do reach out if you have questions. That's what I am here for. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Councillor Duncan Huang, who is very, very familiar with placemaking as a topic. Let me stop my share.
Okay, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Again, Duncan Huang. I'm a Metro Councilor for District 6, which is southeast, southwest Portland. So on that map that Dana had up, I'm just smack in the middle of the region. Before I joined the Metro Council, I worked at, and actually still work at, a community-based organization that does community development, community organizing, and placemaking. And we were proud recipients twice of this community placemaking grant, and we focused our work out in East Portland, and kind of related to like a big transit investment that was coming through our neighborhood. So we did placemaking projects along the corridor to really bring new voices to the table, to engage in that planning process, and to really identify community needs, and actually even like help kind of adjust the alignment for the project. And some of the benefits that we got were really focused around placemaking, anti-displacement, and housing. So one of the great kind of co-benefits was we have this new transit line, and we also got 600 units of affordable housing on the corridor, and a really great workforce development program. So overall, kind of this placemaking work helped lead to some real community wins. So we're really excited to have this program at Metro. We love it so much. We're more than doubling our investments in placemaking because we know it really delivers on the outcomes that we all want to see. So I want to thank you all for joining, and I'm really excited for this conversation ahead.
Okay, we are going to start now with Alexis Garces. She is the founder of Santanera Living lifestyle brand and Gente Market. I think I met you over 5 years ago. Alexis is a dedicated marriage and family therapist from Santa Ana, California, and has made significant strides in reshaping her hometown's image and fostering a strong sense of community pride. Disturbed by the negative perceptions of Santa Ana, Garces launched the Instagram account Santanera Living, which highlighted the city's vibrant Latino culture and thriving local business sector. This initiative blossomed into the Santanera Living lifestyle brand and a celebration of Chicano culture. Then, building on this success, Garces founded Gente Market, a monthly open-air market and festival held in downtown Santa Ana and later at the Heritage Museum. The market features a diverse array of vendors, food trucks, musicians, and artists, drawing thousands of attendees and showcasing the city's rich cultural heritage. Through her efforts, Garces supports small businesses, promotes community unity, and highlights the beauty and diversity of the city of Santa Ana. Alexis?
Thank you for that introduction. My name is Alexis, and I am born and raised from the city of Santa Ana, which is a city located within Orange County in Southern California, in the state of California. And so, like Madeline said, I started this journey because of where I come from. And so I'm going to kind of give you I guess the timeline of, you know, how things started for me and how they grew into what eventually became Hampton Market. And really, I think became a larger impact within, you know, just not just the city, but I think the community as a whole. So I'm going to show you some slides to help one guide me and give you some visuals. Yes, so it all started with Santa Neta Living. Like I said, I'm from Santa Ana, and I grew up with, you know, people calling themselves Santaneros, Santaneras. And so it was a term that kind of, you know, helped to identify who you are in the sense of pride within, you know, our city. So that's where the term Santa Neta Living, the brand name, comes from. But the brand really, if we can go to the next slide, the brand really came from what was this negative, you know, perception of, you know, my community. And so when I started this brand, the goal was to create something that was going to change the narrative into something positive. You know, I'm Mexican. I was born, you know, in the States. My parents, my mom was born, you know, here. So there's kind of some disconnect for me personally in my own culture, my heritage, and having that connection. So there was a disconnect, and I think that's a very important piece for me personally in why I created this brand and eventually Hampton Market. But I grew up in a city that's predominantly Latino and predominantly a working class community. And so I saw people all around me that were, you know, creative and hardworking and, you know, just hustlers, you know, so to speak. And that was something that, you know, motivated me and I appreciated about my community. However, other people didn't see it the same way. And, you know, as I had the, you know, good fortune to be able to go on to college and eventually get my master's degree, when I entered into the professional, you know, workplace, when I shared, you know, where I was from, people often had this negative view of, oh, ugh, you know, Santa Ana. And I think it was very much associated with, you know, the culture. And that was always very, you know, bothersome to me. It was offensive. And I'd always find myself in a place of having to defend a community that I came from. And so I got to a point where I wanted to do something different. And that's when I started Santa Neta Living. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just thought, you know, how could I, you know, creatively do something different for the community? I don't have the access or resources to, you know, government officials, or I'm not in that world. What can I do? So I just started an Instagram. If we could go to the next slide. And I just started taking pictures of, you know, my community and started creating merchandise and, you know, products that reflected my perspective of the community. I tend to refer to the city as she or her, because to me, I almost identify her as, you know, like a woman. You know, she's caring for the community. She's there. You know, she does have some toughness and edge to her, but there's also this other vibrancy and soft side. And so I wanted to reflect that into the images I put out there. You know, there was a lot of negative once again. So I wanted to, you know, fight the darkness with light. And so, as you can see, I used a lot of pink because I personally like pink. And I think it was a contrast to what we were so used to. So it started taking off. People, I think, really gravitated towards, you know, what I was doing because it hadn't been done and it was a need. And so I found myself filling a need in the community that I didn't realize was so valuable and important. so I think something you'll see as I'm kind of going on is like just me really figuring it out as I'm going. You know, I didn't know what I was doing. And I look back and think like, why didn't that stop me? It didn't for whatever reason. And I just kept going. So this took off, and if we could go to the next slide. In creating this brand, I also then had the opportunity to connect with my community, something that I hadn't, you know, done before. I didn't know how. I'm a very reserved and, you know, self-conscious person, shy and that sort of thing. So this was a whole new world for me to be able to do this. But I thoroughly enjoyed every step of the way. And through this is where I met Madeline, and you'll see her in some of these pictures. And so through connecting with my community, I started to learn of a lot of the different issues that were going on in the city, the things that were lacking in my community. And I think it was a really lack of positive connection. One, a place for women to connect and to feel, you know, encouraged and motivated to try new things. So in building this brand, I started recognizing certain needs, and I started doing pop-ups, you know, and there weren't many in our community. I was invited to do a 150th anniversary event for our city, and I sold our, you know, our merch there. But other than that, there really wasn't a whole lot of you know, cultural events or things like that that, you know, people could really connect to and identify and see themselves in. So if we could go to the next slide. That's when I recognized a problem, that my community didn't have these quality events that other bigger, larger cities did. And mind you, Santa Ana is very populated. It's dense, but it does have a lot of, you know, really meaningful and important parts to it. So I wondered, why don't we have this in our city? You know, why don't we have the type of events that highlight Latino culture specifically? We're predominantly Latino. Why don't we have these events here? And I wanted to create something that was going to elevate the culture in an interesting way. You know, there were some, you know, little smaller events maybe that would surface, but nothing like what I had envisioned for the community. So that's when I created Gente Market. And Gente was something that I envisioned for it to be almost like a melting pot, you know, a place where you could come, embrace Latino culture, but you would be from all backgrounds of life, you know, all different cultures. You know, you would see, you know, white, Black, Asian, you know, all every color that you can think of, every type of, you know, economic background. I wanted them to be at this event and feel comfortable and welcomed, and, you know, create memories with their family. Madeline kind of mentioned I have a background in, you know, mental health. And so that's always a part of what I do, is to encourage, you know, connection, and to encourage people to grow and to push themselves, to challenge themselves. So I'm coming into this with all these kind of, you know, different experiences, and I wanted to use my, you know, own education, that privilege that I had, and to share it with others, to create a space for people to share their own unique talents. So Gente Market was born, and we did our first event. We could, I think, go to the next slide. We did our first event at the Blue Lot in downtown Santa Ana, which is a renovated, basically empty, used to be a car lot, and it's filled with murals all over the wall, and it's just a great, you know, little hidden gem in the downtown area that we began to partner with and utilize to create, you know, just kind of like this hub for entrepreneurs and, you know, hustlers and artists and entertainers and just people that had all kinds of different talents, give them a space to come together, to network, to, you know, offer their products and services to the community and, you know, earn kind of a living, because we had created this market December of 2019. And it was small, we didn't know what we were doing, but I saw that people needed it and wanted it. So we continued. And we continued into COVID. And so COVID hit and we had to pivot, but this was actually I think a important time for us. And I'm glad that we had this space already kind of in place, because when COVID hit, people lost their jobs. People didn't have anywhere to go. People were isolated, you know, you couldn't be indoors. And so this community market really came, I think, at an ideal time for people within our community to have that connection, to grow, to, you know, kind of move beyond what was happening, to have that outlet. And I think once again, it does reflect the kind of people within the community. And unfortunately, I think they would have been dismissed otherwise, right? So we started this market and we had, you can see kind of like a diverse group of people. Families would come out with their kids. And there's so many different elements to this, because you would see it like in the corner, a mom with her daughter, you know, and that's teaching her, you know, the value of, you know, entrepreneurship and resilience and hard work. We had young artists, you know, that would come out. There's one pictured here that was selling his artwork, you know, to pay for a car once he graduated, to, you know, be able to go to college. We had, you know, people that just liked connecting with their community, people that were starting brands from scratch that I now see in Macy's. You know, their products, you know, have grown into these larger spaces and they started here with us. And so I'm very proud to be able to have created, you know, the space, kind of this launching point for people of all walks of life to create something to build off of. So that's where we started. We continued to grow. And it wouldn't have been possible without the support that I had. Once again, I didn't know what I was doing. I had all these great visions in my head, but, you know, didn't have the resources or the financial means to put these types of, you know, events together. And so it took a village, and my village was, you know, a lot of family members that would come and volunteer and, you know, help with setup and tear down and be there long hours. And the vendors that eventually became friends and like family, that, you know, kind of were with me from the very beginning and joined in on the vision. And it always was very collaborative. It was never about me. It was always about the community and everything that I did. It was to serve this platform. I wanted it to be as big as it possibly could go, because I wanted it to serve a purpose for the community, for, you know, small business owners, for artists, and just people that had a vision. And so this support system of all these different creative people that I was able to meet along the way helped to build 10th and Market. You know, in all my posts and any interviews I've ever done, I always use the term we. And people would say like, oh, who's we? Who's the team? And I mean, at the end of the day, it's me kind of doing all the things as far as, you know, the logistics. But while maybe they're not there, you know, at my desk typing as I'm creating graphics and things like that, there is a we behind 10th and Market. It's the we of, you know, the family, like I said, that shows up, you know, to set up. It's the we of, you know, vendors or creatives that say, I'll set this up for you. Like, oh, I want to create something really cool. Okay, let's do it. So the we is a collaboration of just anybody who wants to create something, you know, better for their community. So without support, I don't know if it were even possible. You know, I never really understood the self-made notion, because I think everywhere you go, somebody opened a door for you. Even if you walked in alone, somebody opened the door for you to walk in. You know, there's support all along the way. So everything that I've done, from Something at a Living to Head the Market, has been a collaborative effort to create a place in our community for people to grow and build. So let's see, what was so I'm going to show you a little a video. This was our second annual Frida Fest that we did at the Heritage Museum. Like, we started with 20 vendors, you know, at the blue lot, and didn't know what we were doing. And it grew into this larger cultural festival where we would put on Frida Fest. We did a Love and Taco Festival. We did Salina Fest. We did a Mija Fest to celebrate, you know, women in the Chicano culture. We've done, you know, Day of the Dead events. We love to create different themes that highlight the culture, once again, in unique ways that bring people together from all walks of life. And once we started doing these festivals, I would step back and make it a point to look around and see the diversity, see memories being made by families, seeing, you know, small businesses thriving and sharing, you know, their talents and things like that within the community. And it was everything that I had hoped for Gente Market to eventually become. So here's a little kind of view of what Gente Market became in, you know, the late years. So as you can see, it's very much, you know, a place that we wanted to create to embrace, you know, our culture, my culture. Once again, I think this was a way for me to continue. It's kind of like I didn't grow up speaking Spanish. I'm not fluent in Spanish. And I think people would be very surprised because I created Gente Market. That's, you know, one would assume that it's created by somebody that Spanish speaking and maybe look a certain way and have, you know, certain experiences. And I didn't necessarily grow up with that, but I always found that it was important to create something that could be passed on to generations. So creating something that allowed us to carry on, you know, our traditions and our culture. And it was so important that it not get washed out, you know, in our communities. And we see that a lot. And I see it in my own community. So I wanted to use Gente Market, and as this platform started to grow, to make it a point to create these types of events that highlighted the culture in a very beautiful way that nobody could kind of turn their eye from, right? Nobody would say, ugh, I don't want to go to that. I wanted to create something too good to, miss. And so I think as a team and as a community, we did a pretty cool job of getting to that place. But in getting to that success, there were, struggles, of course. One, not knowing what I was doing. That's a constant struggle in your mind of, am I doing it correctly? Who am I? The whole imposter syndrome, all of that. And so I often had to battle, these negative thoughts. And I had to just, like I put here, you just throw them in the trash. You cannot sit on them. There's always going to be a struggle and a challenge when you're trying to create these spaces that maybe don't even exist. And you can't be deterred. You will have your moments. That's okay. It is hard. It's not easy work, but you have to remember your why. And, some of the struggles came from my own community. Here I am trying to create these spaces for you, and I'm getting, heat back. So sometimes it is very, very difficult. And I found that in, my own experiences, but I had to just throw it in the trash and move on, because there were people that needed and wanted this. And I recently took a break from doing events, and people said, no, where are you going? And it was missed. And it's just something that's so needed. And so you have to be realistic that these struggles will come. But I think in remembering your why, you're able to continue on and move forward. And once again, having that support network, that's key. So if we could move on, let's see. And when it comes to equity and inclusion, the biggest thing for me in creating these events was just giving people an opportunity. Not everybody, for example, the small businesses that came out, or, the pop-up vendors, not all of them, lasted. Some just wanted to make money and wanted a quick buck, and that's fine. Some really wanted to build something that was going to, kind of outlast them, so to speak, and create brands that were meaningful for the community and for, the culture as a whole. And so I found that all you can do is give people an opportunity and invite them to the table, and share the tools with them. And some will take them and some won't, and that's okay. But I think as long as you create the space for people and invite them in, because some people are shy, as long as you, kind of extend the welcoming hand, people will join. And I think you have to do that for, not just different cultures, but different abilities and different, however you identify. We did all kinds of events that, created, even if it was just pockets and moments, entertainment, we try to have inclusivity in all areas. When somebody said, hey, can I do this? Sure, you can have, a drag show at our event. I'm not Mexican, or I'm not Latino, I'm Asian. Of course you can come, right? The idea is people. Gente is about people. And so I think that's been a big part of also what we do, is just inviting people to the table to give them an opportunity to grow. Confidence, that's still something that I'm learning, and I kind of have this connect, create, reflect, repeat. And that's, I think, how I continue to grow as a person and grow in my confidence, because when I connect with people, I learn. People aren't the same as me, and I need that. I need people to be different around me so that I can understand what's needed in my community. I can understand the next steps, I might be taking, because what I think is good may not be needed in, the space. And I may be missing out on something very important. So connecting with people before I create. When I create, you know, that's my outlet, where I can do something and feel good about it. And when I reflect, I'm allowing myself the opportunity to remember why I even started all of this. And then I just kind of keep repeating that process, and that builds my confidence, because I can look back and say, oh, I've done that. I've worked with these people before. I've created that before. And I know why I do it. So that's kind of how I build my own personal confidence. And I think that's something that can be very useful for anybody in this space, to just kind of simply remember, why am I doing this, and what's the purpose, and all of that good stuff, right? So I thank you so much for your time and listening and kind of going on this little journey with me. And I hope that you take away that community is so important. You know, we each come from different communities, and only you know from being in that community of what's needed. And so I hope you, whether you're doing the work or, you know, interested in maybe going in this direction, I hope you find the confidence and motivation to do something, because it's so important, and it's extremely rewarding to do this type of work. And so once again, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you all.
Thank you, Alexis, and thank you for reminding us that I love your vision of seeing the city as a woman and the way that you iterated through. I think a huge part of placemaking is that iterative process of really having to learn as you go, or make the road by walking. And then also this idea of connecting to community and having to become the connector yourself with community, and also this desire to really highlight and amplify your culture, and even the greater culture and the intersectional cultures that all came in to be a part of your space. Also the celebration of culture and this joy of sharing culture, which is so beautiful. And then this other piece, which I think is really important, that has to do with, you know, Jane Jacobs, who's a huge component of placemaking, also talks about this thing called product replacement, which is something that's so powerful. I remember when you first said, look, there's people in our community that make all these products. And we know in the city of Santa Ana, it has a huge leader in a product replacement called Suavecito pomade. And we have a lot of people in our community that are replacing popular products with new, innovative products. And according to Jane Jacobs, the only real thing that actually builds economies. And it's as if our economists have forgotten that actually that is the thing that builds economy. So I think it's beautiful, the work that you've shared. And I'm excited for us to go on to learn from our Portland component, which is our Indigenous placemaker. This is Lluvia Merrello, and we are going to, Lluvia Merrello is the executive director of the Portland Indigenous Marketplace and Indigenous Come Up. And Lluvia Merrello was born in the sacred valley of the Incas in Peru, and she proudly embraces her Quechua, Andean, Inca heritage. In 2018, Merrello founded the Indigenous Come Up, a business where she designs and creates various items from stress balls to jewelry, collaborating with other business owners who have survived challenging government and tribal systems. Her entrepreneurial spirit and dedication led her to organize a local Portland Indigenous Marketplace, and she now serves as the executive director of the nonprofit she founded. And with over a decade of experience as a baker and cook in restaurants and also bakeries, Merrello brings a wealth of transferable skills to her current work. Her journey through the service industry has equipped her with an invaluable lesson, enriching her contributions to her community and to the broader marketplace. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And I think we're gonna go ahead and introduce me again through a video. And then I'll start.
Hello, my name is Lluvia Magali Merrello. I'm indigenous to Peru, Quechua, Andean, Inca, and I am the founder and current executive director of the Portland Indigenous Marketplace. The Portland Indigenous Marketplace is a small grassroots nonprofit here in Portland, Oregon, and we serve close to 200 artists and entrepreneurs on the West Coast. We have no geographical boundaries for those that we serve. We host events throughout Portland in several different locations, and as of last year, started hosting events outside of the city of Portland in places like Fairview, Gresham, Oregon City, and Milwaukee. Through our Indigenous Marketplace programming, we host the Indigenous Marketplace events all over Portland, outside of Portland. We engage with over 200 artists and entrepreneurs. You can find out more on our social media outlets, on Instagram and Facebook, and then also on our website, www.indigenousmarketplace.org. You can stay current through our website for events, and you can. There's also a donate tab that you can contribute at any time. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and your donations are tax deductible. Please look out for any fundraising opportunities, and thank you. And I'm gonna go ahead and try to also run a slideshow. So, thank you, everyone. And yeah, as mentioned, I am with the Portland Indigenous Marketplace, and we're a very grassroots local nonprofit here in Portland, Oregon. This is our beautiful logo, which you'll actually find the two mountains are Mount Hood and Machu Picchu. And then the two birds in the logo are the eagle and the condor. So I just wanted to share our mission statement with you all. As mentioned, and very similar to Alexis's story, as far as, you know, all of this was started without a plan, didn't know what we were doing. I did start a small business called Indigenous Come Up, and didn't really know what I was doing again, but also felt a need for creativity and more representation. And so, yeah, and similar, very similar. And I feel like this story probably is, you know, thousands of people, millions of people could tell the same story. As far as like within our immediate community, there were very limited, I counted maybe 12 events throughout the whole year that were culturally specific for Indigenous folks. So that would include powwows and different Native markets and different things like that. And this was in 2018, so that, you know, it looks a lot different today. But in that time, there just wasn't, you know, and that's not enough. That's 12 days of vending for an entrepreneur. And that's just not gonna, you know, sustain you into like growing a business. And my experience as a small business owner was that for me to go to these culturally specific events, not only would I most of the time do a lot better financially with the business, and by better, I'm, you know, we're talking about a couple $100 was a huge success in starting a very small business with no budget. But even like, one, I would do a little bit better with sales, but then my emotions, my experience was always just, it was positive, first of all. When I sold with my own community, when I was there with folks that, you know, made cultural items, and just like we were there to represent culture, identity, and crafts, arts and crafts. compared to when I just went to, as a small business and signed up for a random arts and crafts event, where sometimes I really would come home and just be sure I was doing the wrong thing and just be sure that, this wasn't right. That my experiences were so negative sometimes. And a lot of it, some of it was blatant negativity. Others were just really like discouraging comments and, whatever, no appreciation of kind of what I was putting out there, which, I think is every small business's journey, but it was just so drastic for me that I also saw that need, like, no, we actually need more opportunity throughout the year for these businesses to actually have a chance, and or even for those businesses too that maybe the artist doesn't continue to make to stay in the business for generations, but even those few years could be transformative for not only the person making the items, but for the whole community. You just never know especially when you're creating from kind of your heart and you're also hand making things, those items like create a whole different life of their own and carry on purpose and meaning. So really appreciated everything Alexis said, because I can relate to almost everything 100%. So I was born in Cauca, Peru. It's the sacred valley of the Incas, as mentioned by Madeline. And I came to the States when I was very young as a toddler. So, and I totally can also connect with that disconnect from culture, as far as like I was born right in the heart of my culture, but I was actually separated pretty drastically from it, as far as there's not a big Peruvian community in Oregon or the West Coast or United States really. So, there was a huge separation when I was a child. And actually growing up, I always, my identity was always, I'm indigenous to Peru. But that also took a lot of like learning and relearning, because here in the United States, we often identify the word indigenous as only relating to Native American folks. And so that just, it just creates a different conversation. And that's always been important to me, as far as like through the Portland Indigenous Marketplace. I would say the heart and the soul of the organization are Native American artists, artists and entrepreneurs, and overwhelmingly, like the artists that we serve are 70% plus native to North America. But it was really important for me to be truthful about my identity, and also just for everyone to kind of recognize that there are indigenous people everywhere. So, this is where I was born. These are the kind of markets that you will see in Peru and a lot of the world, just totally vibrant. I don't know if you all travel, but and some places in the United States we have these, but these are everyday markets. This is a lifestyle. This is like, and I just, whenever I get to visit places like this, still, I'm just like in love. It's a really warm feeling in my heart to see all these amazing entrepreneurs and artists. So, I grew up, my parents were vendors. I grew up at marketplaces in Peru, all along the West Coast, just pretty much anywhere that my mom could find a place to vend, we went. So, it's always been a part of, I would say, a part of who I am. I used to sleep underneath the tables as a child while my mom vended all day. Those kind of experiences that I now see still occur. But so it's just always been a part of who I am. So through having this small business in 2018, I actually did get a very small contract with a local the Portland Bureau of Transportation, PBOT, to host 3 really small events at a larger event. And so these are pictures from that, that was in 2018, when we literally like had well, that tiny contract, we had a tiny budget, but after that, we decided to continue to doing events with a budget of absolutely zero. We, just like Alexis said, like we saw a need and the community was saying, no, we need more of this. Like, let's find a way. And so we continued to do it with just what we had, which wasn't much. But, partnerships, small parking lots, both of these pictures are from small parking lots of spaces that let us use that space for no charge. These were smaller events with like less than 10 vendors on a, 100%. We did not know what we were doing, but we knew that this was a need, and people kept showing up, not only the vendors, but other people. And the vendors these vendors pictured right here from our first events are still part of our network. Like we actually, almost overwhelmingly, artists and entrepreneurs stay part of our network and have, are part of this for the opportunities, but it's not just the financial opportunities, it's the community opportunities, it's the raising your children and community opportunities, it's all these things. So I do feel like anybody could kind of start where both Alexis and I are talking about starting. And even if it doesn't continue throughout the years, I just like the vendors that sometimes, create for a few years. I feel like there's purpose and meaning in all of it because we recognize that need. So, we're now in a place where we're hosting, this year, we're going to host 30 marketplace days, or probably more actually this year. And we have close to 200 vendors in our network. And so we always have to rotate, and we have to, sometimes in a weekend, each vendor can only vend one day we try to be as fair as possible, and for anybody that wants to participate, hopefully gets that opportunity. We are an official nonprofit, a 501c3. We became a nonprofit in 2020, very similar to what Alexis just shared as far as we submitted that paperwork, I think February 28th of 2020. And we, had just had our most successful marketplace ever in November of 2019. And so we were like feeling so good. And we were, like, this is really happening. And then COVID hit. And it was like, all we knew was in-person events. And all the things that Alexis described were 100% what was happening. People were isolated, people lost jobs, people couldn't leave their homes, all these things. People were sick, people were passing. We actually, during that time, didn't cancel a single date that we had, and we actually switched to virtual events, which again, we had no idea what we were doing, but some kind of way we pulled it off. And it became all those things that we needed as far as like, yes, it provided a platform for artists, entrepreneurs to still be seen. We provided this virtual platform where not many, but some vendors had online platforms where people could order from. And during this like 2-year process, a lot more created like Etsy accounts or just different ways that people could interact to continue some kind of commerce during that time. And, we did it. We created a space. We had programming that we virtually that we, broadcasted for like 6 to 8 hours at a time. And so it became this space where not only are we highlighting all these beautiful artists, but it actually was this space for community to gather in a safe way in a time that we weren't supposed to gather in person. And so, that I think also became really meaningful for our community to kind of take that time to just build the community too. So we, from day one, have been all 100% women, 100% almost 100% Indigenous led. I think one of our past board members didn't identify as Indigenous, but a person of color. And that to me is really significant. I don't know if we'll always keep it that way, but we're into our 5th year of being a nonprofit, and this is our current board. And I just can't say how proud I am that like we've gotten this far, and everyone here on our board is like a community organizer, really connects with with our mission. And not only are they gaining, leadership skills and opportunities, but we as a community benefit from all of their expertise, because it really is an expertise when you're actually in the community and you're not just talking to people about what the community should be like or what should change or all those things. So I love to highlight that. Over the years, it's become really, really important to us to define what we mean by Indigenous. Because like I mentioned earlier, there's definitely different people define it differently. So for us, we, like I said, overwhelmingly the community we serve is the Native American population, but we do, like myself, Indigenous to Peru, that is part of our definition. And so that is part also, we serve folks from all over the world. We include the Black African diaspora within our definition of Indigenous, recognizing that we, pre-colonial times, we were kind of all Indigenous. So just kind of like taking it back and really thinking about that. And even though for us too, another thing that became really important was, yes, we all have different, there's a wide diaspora of identifying as Indigenous, but if you are going to create culturally specific and especially culturally sacred items, you have to be connected with your culture is one of our conditions. Totally, because we are trying to create that balance of consumerism and culture, and it's honestly really hard. And we're doing our best. I won't say we have all the answers, but that is really important to us, that if you're gonna be creating and selling culture, you have to be part of that culture. So as I mentioned, we're on a great, where are we going? We've been very mobile, very nomadic over the years. As I mentioned, parking lots, we partnered with restaurants, community centers, almost any kind of, we're going, in the summer, we go out to parks because it's just so hot. We just know we have to be in green spaces. And we have made all that work, and it's been a lot of work. And we're proud of that. And I hope we always continue some of our nomadic kind of pop-ups, but we're also gearing up to actually have a home by some just amazing circumstances. Someone approached us a few months ago about donating property to our organization. And so we're actually going to be owners of a very small city block with a building on it. And, nothing will happen right away, but we're really, really excited about we've done the community placemaking. This will solidify the location to find us and to, engage too. So, I don't know where we are with time. I kind of stopped the clock, but yeah, I just wanted to share that we're really excited about this, huge move for us. I will add, it's huge, and still in that area of like, we don't really totally know what we're doing into this next move, but we're really excited. And I will add the neighborhood itself that we're we actually currently occupy space in this same neighborhood, but the whole neighborhood has these amazing, I can't even, that's a whole nother presentation, but the plans for this neighborhood, there are two other Native-led organizations that have like multi-million-dollar projects that they're about that are about to take off in this neighborhood. And so not only is this like opportunity of a home just amazing and mind-blowing, but to then also be that location being connected to all these other amazing projects, I think is actually going to put like that neighborhood on a national, like it's different. It's totally different. And that does
Amazing.
how to support us.
Thank you so much, Lluvia. And I love how you shared that it was that lack of representation of events that like spurned you forward, and the notion of the experience when you actually were in those events being more joyful, when you actually were working around people like you who were doing and making in the way that you knew. And that bringing joy into your life and experience, and also the necessity of having more acceptance, appreciation, and the need for opportunity. And also this idea of creating from the head and the hand, which you described, and as well as this need to learn and relearn around the ideas of Indigenous identity, which I feel like is so important as people are coming from places and having to relearn who they are in these spaces, and also figure out ways to reconnect to those places in public space. I love that you talked about Peru and the public market as a lifestyle. We did a talk not long ago called the Bazaar Talk, where we really were talking about that lifestyle of marketplaces, not only framing the whole city, but being a place where people interact. And we find marketplaces to be such a pivotal and important piece of making people feel a part of place and space. And I love that you guys were so resilient to be able to switch to virtual events, because that during COVID, that is such a hard process that occurred. And so many people had to like move into that tech realm and learn how to really work with technology in a way that they hadn't in the past. And I also am really amazed with the community building and the fact that it is women and Indigenous-led women. I think that's so powerful. And we often notice that balance actually comes into community through women being back in those spaces and leading those spaces, because it actually reorients the whole place into this kind of multi-generational and more holistic dynamic. And that's something that I also, with Alexis, both her and another woman named Lonnie, were some of the folks that helped to bring that balance into the city of Santa Ana. And then I also loved where you said defining who the community is and the necessity of being reconnected to the culture. And I just want to say congratulations on your new space and building of community, because I know one thing is that when a place is not nomadic and actually is there, it can create and build community in a way that moving from place to place doesn't allow. And with the surrounding people that you described in that community, the node is going to be able to build out and become like, I mean, it's so wonderful to be able to know that you will be able to share with the whole community in this one place. So I thank you for everything that you shared. And I think we're going to open this up now to anyone who has questions. And I don't know if there's any that maybe Ryan sees already on the docket.
So folks can now unmute themselves. They can turn their video on if you have a question you would like to ask or a comment, or if something has resonated with you. You can also type those things into the chat. We see Katie Yellow from Jacksonville, Florida popping on. So let's turn it over to her first.
I'll go second. I'm collecting my thoughts. I'm just really impressed by the speakers and their projects and kind of the evolution of their original idea.
Okay, well then, before Katie, I think a question that has emerged from our group here is, how do you measure success in your placemaking projects, especially regarding community belonging and engagement? What are the qualitative or quantitative measures for these intangibles?
Can I start to answer the question? Oh, sorry.
Let's give them a shot first, and then you can
Yeah, sorry.
add that in your question.
Of course.
I can kind of quickly answer for myself. What we've done is just kind of something that's more tangible is we would often do a, like survey. One, we'd want to see to the vendors, we would send a survey to them, and we'd always want to know, kind of the numbers, so to speak, of, what their sales look like, but also feedback as far as, their experiences. And so we would always take that into account. We would do surveys after our events to get feedback from the community, utilizing our social media pages to connect with people and ask questions of what would you guys like to see, or, what would you, want to see at an upcoming event, or is there something we've done that you've really liked that we should continue doing? So I try to constantly ask those questions at events. I interact with vendors, what's your experience, but also by observing. So, observing kind of the networking that's taking place within these spaces, seeing how, maybe one artist and a small business have now connected and, have now created a collaboration, or, have partnered in new ways with the city, or different things. So being observant and paying attention to these other little activations that are happening because of the space that we created, to me, is a success, because it's not just what we've done, but it's what else is kind of spurring from what we've created. So to me, that's like, those are huge, successes, and kind of how I see them. But the tangibles is surveys and having the conversations and things like that.
Yeah, I would, agree with everything said. And we actually also have a survey. We don't ask for numbers, but we ask for, how good were your sales? 1 for bad, 5 for great. And then how was your experience with the same sliding scale? And so for me too, it's always interesting and affirming to see that even when someone's sales are at a 1, their experience is usually at a 4 or 5. And so, because we can't always guarantee everyone has a great day in sales and things like that. What we do try to guarantee is a great experience. And not just for our vendors, for everybody, right? When you create a great space. And so for me, a lot of success is also defined by people coming back, people being engaged. Again, not only the vendors, but the outside community too, and people feeling like they are a part of the place, the event.
Awesome. And I don't know if Katie, you want to pop back up, or otherwise we have another question in the chat.
I have one question that I have that we've been given, which is, like, what funding sources have you found to be most effective? And I know both of you guys may have had piecemeal things given to you, or things to help, but like, let's say that in another community somewhere, there's folks that would like to start this. It'd be great to know where has the most support come, and maybe what you found most effective as it helped you.
Well, I did forget to mention in my speech how the Metro Community Placemaking Grant, not only this year is allowing us to host events out in Fairview and Oregon City, but actually the Metro Community Placemaking Grant was the first grant. We got the grant before we were even a nonprofit, and the grant was actually called Portland Indigenous Marketplace. And I had applied for it through my small business with a fiscal sponsor. So I don't honestly know how many grants like this are available outside of the, our Portland metro area, but for me, like, I honestly do not think we would be where we are if that opportunity had we not applied, had we not had been one of the grantees of that, because before that we had a budget of 0. And so this grant is very unique in the way that community groups can apply, and you don't have to have matching, you don't have to have like a history. I think those entry level grants or opportunities are so important for these reasons, for these people that we see community need, and we don't have all the resources. And so any little piece of resources like this grant, which is not a little tiny piece, it's actually a significant, but also like event grants and things like that might be smaller, but that are attainable for folks that aren't official nonprofits.
I know for us, I've not received a grant actually. I know they're out there, so I would definitely encourage anybody that's, starting out to look within your, city and things like that. I've worked in the past with SBDC that, is I think they're government funded, but they provide resources for, businesses. And so reaching out to, just Google searching, sometimes it's just a cold call on the internet to kind of find these resources. I think, like, Lluvia mentioned, like, grants are so important to kind of just give you that running start. For us, it was just whatever was made, it would just get reinvested and then reinvested. And it was just piggybacking off of that, starting from 0, but really it was kind of like a little bit of borrowing and then paying back, and then building off of. And that's kind of how we've done it. And I don't suggest that because I think there's better ways to do it. But I definitely think like grants, looking, into your city, and also any other national organizations. But I'm still learning all of that. So that's kind of my own experience too.
Awesome. And there's a question in the chat from Florentina, and it says, hello, everyone from Arizona State University, Phoenix. I'm wondering, how did the speakers, leaders of their communities acquire the spaces they function or will function in? Are they rented, acquired the property, or are they guests in those places, welcomed by the property owners?
So for us, it was actually Madeline was the one who really connected me with our first space at the Blue Lot. And honestly, I don't even remember if it was a rental at that time. But every space that we've been at, we've rented. We've not had the good fortune of people providing free space to us, unfortunately. But we have been connected with, a few venues that have been very accommodating because, depending on your state and your area and where you're at, there's permits and all these other issues that come up that can get very costly and complicated. And it's very much a learning curve to figure out the system. So some spaces may provide you free space, but once again, depending on the area, there may be other requirements and fees and things like that. And so once again, the grants and, the funding is so important to help you to cover you know, all your bases and the needs so that you're able to activate in these areas.
Yeah, and I will just add that renting's, you know, event space is a challenge. I imagine everywhere, but in Portland, it's become crazy expensive, especially if you're talking about like an all-day event. A lot of spaces are hourly. So, you know, for us, a few years ago, that was kind of unattainable. We've worked on a really small budget for all these years. So we started intentionally creating more partnerships with spaces that we potentially could hold spaces at. So currently we have actually you know, kind of beautiful community of you know, a restaurant that opened up a whole room to us that we've had, I think, 5 different events at. A YMCA recently invited us. One of our local colleges, the Native Art or the Native Student Community Center, hosts us several times. So we've been really fortunate in that way, but I will say too, it is like, you never know when that, you know, partnership or opportunity may end for whatever reasons. Because it is a lot of, you know, even if someone's partnering with you, they usually have to have a staff person on site. It is often a cost. So yeah, we told, you know, this, for me, this idea of us having a home is crazy because, you know, that's always been a huge part of the whole program, is finding space. And not only is it like finding space that is affordable, but finding space that's going to work for you and your community, for your needs, I think is so important.
Oh, we see Alpha there, and you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
I really wasn't going to ask a question. I was just really glad to be a part of the Gathering Places, and I just turned my camera on. So I'm actually here from Chicago, Illinois. I do a lot of placemaking here in the Brownsville Art District, but I have a huge project in California with one of my clients at the Sojourner Truth African Heritage Museum in Sacramento, California. And we're doing a large placemaking project, and that's called the Foreign Road Community Beautification Project, where we're doing placemaking through this whole business corridor as an extension of the projects that the museum is doing. And recently got a AARP community. You guys got one too down in Long Beach, but you know, we got one up in Sacramento for converting our back parking lot that's part of the business incubator and transforming that into a people space with murals and ground painting and installing accessible seating for seniors in our back parking lot. So I've just been following the work that you all have been doing, and was encouraged with the parking lot international conversation that we were having a couple of years ago about converting parking lots into people's spaces. So that's great. And then here in Chicago, we've converted an alley into an art alley, you know, and during openings, we use it as a safe space for people to transition from our commercial gallery to our migration garden. And they never think that they're on 47th Street, which is the heart of Bronzeville here in a busy street. They never think that outdoor space in terms of placemaking is, they would never believe that they're in an alley on a major street. So those are just a couple of the placemaking projects that I'm consumed with project managing. So.
Thank you, Alpha. That's awesome.
Thanks so much for your bravery and showing yourself and adding that valuable comment. I had a quick question for you guys. You know, we do a lot of work with markets, and there's the balance of the vendors, but also the non-commercial components. And so I was curious if you might highlight some of the non-commercial aspects of your markets, whether it's performance, or do you have kids spaces, or other things that go beyond the sales aspects?
I know for us, one of the things we did early on was having I think we called it like a kids corner. And so we would have, youth that wanted to come out and, that were makers themselves. And like I had mentioned in my presentation, we had an artist, for example, who, painted and wanted to sell his paintings. So he would come out and, create, have his own space, and we wouldn't charge him. And, it was just a nice way for the community to support the local youth. We would also try to work with the local school districts to bring out, we had one group of volunteers that would come out to some of our events, and they would, help, the vendors with setup, just kind of be there during the event. But it gave them the opportunity to see what leadership looks like in the community, connecting with, other members of their community, and seeing, the importance of creating space and, taking ownership, in their neighborhoods, and seeing just kind of how things run. So it was a way for them to gain experience and things like that. We did a lot of stuff working with youth, because I always felt like it was just really important. And then always having, some type of very family friendly element to our events, so that, families can feel comfortable in coming out and playing and kind of going to the venue. I think Lluvia mentioned it, having a venue that's going to make sense for your mission and what you want to do, right? Like a parking lot might be free and a great space, but is it the safest place? For example, it might be better in a park where there's green grass where kids can run and play and that sort of thing. So I think being mindful of all of that is important. But aside from, supporting the small businesses, it's, supporting the kids in the neighborhoods and having events that are fun and interesting and engaging for them. I'm hoping to do an event later this year where we can do kind of like an artist call for youth, to do a kind of, I just lost the words, but a way for young artists to display their artwork, and hopefully we can get, some funding to, provide, prizes and, things like that to support them on their artistic journeys and things like that. So working with the youth is very important to me, and kind of another way that we make space for people in our community.
Yeah, I love that. When we have room, we have a great kind of kids activities that we bring out, even like a play kids booth and stuff. And that's been a request from the community, I would say, from the beginning, just always kind of being inclusive of the young ones and stuff. A year ago, we had approached, pretty sure most of you are familiar with Dave's Killer Bread. They're local here. But we had approached them about a sponsorship a year ago, and they were like, "Oh, we're not currently doing that, but we'll give you bread." And it blossomed into this great partnership, where that's now what part of our event is. We give Dave's Killer Bread out to people, and people are always like, "Are you sure? Like, maybe someone else needs it." We're just like, "Please take it. Like, Dave gives it to us, they give to you. Please just take." And it's, like that loaf of bread is $6-7 at the grocery store. So it's a decent gift. And it's also, so we for years didn't have food vendors. So also we've always provided free snacks and things like that, not only for folks, but for the attendees, but for the vendors too, to just, have a comfortable setting. Maybe you don't have a full meal, but you have something nearby. But then we recently actually have incorporated food vendors, but our free snacks there's not less of a demand. It's actually more of a demand when you have food vendors, I feel like, because not everyone can afford that. And so, you bring a family to an event, and you often, if you're on a budget, you're not going to be able to afford to feed everyone. of course, people get hungry, you know, so our free snacks are really a part of just like making sure everyone's comfortable and taken care of. As the free bread kind of started that way because we didn't have food vendors, and we're like, you know, everyone bring sandwich fixins, we got bread, you know, it was just like a solution to our problem at the time. But we also try to, when there's space, because some spaces are very small and we don't have space for performers, but we love to include performers, and all our events are free. And so it just creates a nice welcoming environment. We often actually have free giveaways for the first 100 people outside of the bread and the snacks because it's just like not only an incentive for you to come, but we also just try to create a great environment that, like, yes, we want you to come and spend some money if you have it, but also we want you to have a good time, like regardless of how much money you spend, or, you know, if you can spend any at all.
I also wanted to quickly mention too, depending on where you're located, working with like larger organizations. In our area, we've worked with the Ducks, which is a hockey team, a professional hockey team. They've come out to our events. We've worked with like soccer clubs and things like that. And so having some of these organizations come out is really great because, one, it's a way for them to connect with a different community. And for me, that's important because it means something to them that they see value in our community and want to engage with them. And so if you provide, a space like this, of, a place of diversity and that sort of thing, and you can connect with larger organizations, it's also kind of spreading that footprint, right, into these bigger organizations, which is important. And I think it's nice because, not that you have control, but you know the good that you're doing and the value. And so if you can kind of open that door for partnerships, for whether it's your vendors or artists or anybody within the community, into these larger organizations, it's very positive to have those partnerships and create those, because you never know how they'll benefit other people within your circle. So I think that's another one that I forgot to kind of mention, but it's been useful. And I've seen, some of our vendors, when we've had the Ducks, which is a big, hockey team, some of our vendors were then able to work with them in other projects. So it's a great opening door for other people as well.
So I wanted to ask one more question, which is just, you guys, if you had one thing that you wanted to share just to everyone who is here listening, etc., like what would you leave as your last, maybe your motto or the last piece of information?
I guess for me, without overthinking it, something that's been my personal model that I've carried into this work is leaving things better than I found them. That's just kind of something that I, whether I go to a restaurant and try to clean up after myself, or when I create, and put on these types of events, I want to leave a lasting impact, something that's going to better from the individual that came out to support, to the vendors, to the venues that we worked with. I want everybody to benefit in some way. So I think if you can kind of go by that, leaving things better than you found it, you're always going to kind of push the envelope in a very good way.
Geez, there's a lot I think I could say. I think, I think that for not having a plan, like starting with kind of, zeros all over the place, no budget, no place, no real 5-year plan, none of that, allowed us to not like dictate what our community needed. It you know, it was hard at a lot of times, kind of like a lot of people asking questions and just like, I don't actually know the answer to that yet. Like, because we hadn't defined everything about our community. But now years later that we are doing that work, we're able to look back and like really see our community for who we are and build around that instead of some kind of perceived notion of what our community, what success looks like, what you know, what a marketplace looks like, what all these, you know, all these projections that we didn't start with because it was out of this need and like just you know, kind of emotional, like connecting and things like that. Not to say that a plan is a bad thing. I think that's a great, you know, often very useful, a great thing. But when, especially in spaces like this, where like, one of the biggest compliments I've received from a vendor is like, they're so honored to be a part of the community because their children are able to grow up with normalizing Indigenous marketplaces. And for the adults, they didn't get that opportunity. That though they wasn't normalized, it wasn't a resource available to them. And so for me, it already like that alone validates and like gives everything we do meaning and purpose, because we've created a beautiful space that parents are proud to raise their children in.
Thank you. There is one person who has one more question, and I just want to let, his name is Robert Munoz. And Robert, would you like to come on and ask? You're on mute at the moment.
All right, cool.
Hi.
So for those of y'all that are local, I just did I pay a lot for a software. So I think there's like 78 grant opportunities there you can go through. The website is there. I wanted to ask though, my question was, you know, a lot of times people think that they have to have social security numbers to be able to start their business. But I think you can also you can start a business with an ITN number, correct? I just wanted to ask that for if there's someone who is
That's
interested
my
in.
understanding is that's
Yep.
true. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe you can, you know, get a simple seller's permit with a TIN number. And that's usually kind of the bare bones of being able to sell at, you know, within these kind of marketplaces and things like that. If you go beyond that and want to build like a, you know, an LLC and all of that sort of thing, I want to say you should still be able to, but
Yeah.
it
Yep. Yeah, because a lot of times people think, wow, immigrants are so industrious, right? Often it's the only way that one can legally make money without running into trouble.
Thank you for sharing that as a final point, because I think that's really, really important. And a lot of these marketplaces provide that incubation to begin to even see if your products will sell, and to building a business and incubating a business. And as Alexa said, there's this multiplier effect where once people get to know and see you, that they're able at that point to actually begin to either invest or collaborate, and it's really powerful. But yes, that barrier is definitely one, and you need that beginning step to be able to do your work.
Yep, and then you can show that you've been contributing, you've been paying your taxes, and it helps to get your, you know, to get the documents. So I don't know if the Zoom is going to be, if the chat is going to be on there. So if anyone is interested in grant opportunities, make sure to click on the Excel file and download it, or maybe the owners of this meeting can share that resource with people.
Yes, we'll make sure to do that. Thank you so much. And thank you all for this meeting. I appreciate it. And this was a great part of this series. And I hope folks come back tomorrow for one last meetup. All of our speakers have talked about very different things, and you have the opportunity to actually see all of them because we have them taped. So you'll be able to find them on our YouTube, and Ryan will usually send them out to anyone who was here in the program. So I appreciate it.